Okay, as a creative person, I know you can relate to this. You know that feeling when you are just at the top of your creative mojo and like you feel like you're flying and you've got all the ideas in the world and they're like, oh my God, I am killing this right now. And you feel like everything is perfect and you're never gonna run out of ideas and the world is great and rainbows and kittens and puppies and Skittles are everywhere. But then you have those days when everything is just janky, right? Where nothing seems to work. You have no creative inspiration, zero creative energy, and you feel like you are never gonna be able to create ever again in your life. And you're so depressed. You're so worried and so anxious and sad and just you feel hopeless and like all is lost. And why the heck are you even doing what you're doing in the first place? This is stupid. Go back and get a real job, right? Like, I think every creator goes through this. Some people call it creator block, writer's block, maker's block. I don't care what you call it, but it's a common thing, my friend. You are not alone. So today, I want to share a few tips for smashing creative block in the face and reigniting your artistic mojo. Let's get it.
Get up, get crazy, let loose, set yourself free. Whoa, get up, set yourself free.
All right. Welcome back to the GodFrame Show, the podcast where we share life stories and lessons to help you get unstuck and back to making the art that moves the world. I'm your host, GodFrame, and I am so excited that you decided to spend some time with me today, baby. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. I think today's episode is one that a lot of creative people need, myself included, and I really think it's going to have something in it that's going to change your creative career, or at least help you thrive more in your creative career. All right. So first, I want to tell you a quick story. One of our favorite movies in our house right now is Encanto. All right. Now, there's some spoiler alerts. If you have not seen this movie yet, like fast forward like 2 minutes. All right. But Encanto, right? It's this children's movie that is taking the world by storm. Right. And, you've got the We Don't Talk About Bruno, like all these songs, very popular. In the movie, there's this magic candle and it's got like the source of all this power and wonder and magic. And it's special and it makes things talk and makes, houses move and like all this magical stuff happens because of this candle. And everything pretty much is fueled by the power that is in this candle. And if the candle ever burns out, everything would pretty much fall apart. Like vegetation would die, the clouds would break, the sun would fall out of the sky, like all this just crazy stuff, right? And one day it actually happens. The candle gets blown out and immediately like the walls in this house where the family is staying, it starts crumbling down. The ground is quaking. Plants and flowers start dying. Vegetation is drying up. And there's just like all this devastation everywhere. And it's not until, someone's able to come and reignite the flame on this magic candle that everything becomes whole again. And, I told that story because, when your artistic mojo is no longer ignited, just like that candle, you can actually fall apart. And if you're listening to this, you probably have a time or two, like actually fall into pieces because you ran out of creative mojo. You know the feeling where like it's impossible to create anything. You feel like you'll never create any art again and all of your stuff is just useless. Like, what's the point, right? Now, the truth is, nonstop creativity would be great. It would be fantastic if you never ran out of ideas and you never felt like you were on E or that your magic Encanto candle is blown out. But the reality is, because we're human, creative blocks do happen. The good news is there are some ways that you can get through it. All right. So first, I think before I even get to the tips, the first thing you got to do is like recognize when your spark has gone out. Recognize when like when your creative mojo is low and that feeling. Like I don't even have to describe it to you. You know when your creative mojo is low. And sometimes people like, it's easy to ignore and push past it and be like, man, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to keep creating anyway and just force it. But if you and I are honest with ourselves, we know that when you feel that creative mojo dip, when you feel that Encanto candle go out, it is very difficult to do anything, let alone create something magical. And so here's the tips I have for when you do encounter your next creative block. Here's what you can do about it. First tip is explore other creative mediums. If you're having trouble getting something going, getting some ideas off the ground, and you're just like, man, I don't have anything. I don't have any words. I don't have any poetry. I don't have any, a sculpture to create today. I can't make a document. I'm just done. I'm stuck. Then it might be an opportunity for you to try something else, especially something you've never done before. Like, I'm not talking about necessarily another hobby that you're great at. Maybe just something that you've always wanted to try and you've never picked it up. So let's say you are, let's say you're a chef, right? I'm probably going to use chefs a lot because I just love food. I love to eat. But, let's say you're a chef and you're just having trouble coming up with a good recipe that day. Well, maybe try photography for a day. Try typography for a day. Maybe fashion or get into filmmaking or, something, or it don't even have to be that deep. It can literally be as simple as playing with some sort of toy. One day I was, in this creative rut and I was exhausted and pissed off that I couldn't make anything substantial. And I was like, man, I just have to make something. Like I'm trying to make music, I'm trying to make videos, and like nothing's working. And I was getting so mad, and I took a break and went outside to play with my kids. And they were just out there with my wife, just having a ball, like playing with Play-Doh and just making this whole world come to life. And I was like, man, you know what? Give me some of that Play-Doh. Let me just sit down. You know what I'm saying? I was like reluctant at first. Like, let me come over here and like, let me play with this Play-Doh, I guess. I don't know if it's going to do anything, but let me just do it. So I sat down, and as I started to feel the sensation of the Play-Doh in between my fingers and feeling it get into my fingernails and feeling how cool it was to the touch, and just started to kind of roll it in between my hands and start to make shapes. And, nothing that even made sense. I wasn't like, oh, let me make a snowman and, he's got this major story he's going to tell and I'm going to film it and make a vlog out of it. Like, no, like nothing that had to be shown to anyone at all, but just me and my kids and my wife in that moment. I was just making abstract colors and shapes, and it made my mind feel so free just to sit there and make something that no one had to see, right? Just giving me the ability to create something that I wouldn't normally create. It was so therapeutic, it's so relaxing, so fulfilling that I still do it often. Every now and then when they ask me like, hey, Dad, you want to come play Play-Doh? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I'll drop everything. Let's go hit this Play-Doh real quick because I need a break anyway. All right. So that's my first tip. Like, if you're having trouble with your main thing, go try another thing. You never know what you might be able to create. All right. My second tip for when you do encounter creative block is to do something boring. And it may sound crazy, but stick with me, all right? Here's the deal. Creativity is about decisions. All right? You may not think it is, but if you really think about what you're doing, you're actually making tiny decisions. And the more decisions you make, eventually you come out with a thing, right? And so it's easy to get fatigued when you're making all those decisions, especially when you've got other things in your life going on. And so I heard someone say once, I can't remember who it was, but they said, if you work with your mind, and that's what a lot of creative work is. If you work with your mind, you should rest with your hands. If you work with your hands, you should rest with your mind. So what does that look like? If you are involved in a lot of creative work that involves, you thinking and making decisions and like, dreaming up concepts and like using your mind heavily, then you should do something where you don't have to think. For example, you can go and do the dishes. You can go wash your car. You can assemble something, or you can even clean up your creative space. Like put some music on and just start cleaning. And this may sound like, man, dude, you're just trying to get us to do chores. Like, I'm not just trying to get you to do chores, even though if you're married, this is a pro tip. If they're trying to get you to do chores, like you can go do the chores and it'll actually help free your mind. All right. So it's a win-win. But it's not just chores. It's a way to free your mind from all the turmoil of you trying to figure out your creative thing. And it gives your mind the ability to just let loose and not think about anything while you're focusing on the task at hand. What this usually looks like for me is, anytime my wife buys something that needs assembly, I'm usually the guy to assemble it. Even though I hate it sometimes, it's always therapeutic because now I'm concentrating on, okay, let me get piece A and piece B and put that in the hole. Okay, and then screw that. Oh, what kind of screw that? Okay, flathead. Okay, Phillips head. Boom. Like I'm now putting my mental and physical energy somewhere completely other than my creative endeavors. And when I come back to those creative endeavors, like I feel more refreshed and I feel less bogged down and less tired. So that's my tip for you. Like, man, go and find something to do that is just completely boring. Bonus points if it's a physical activity or a chore. My third tip for you when you do face creative block is to go get some food. It's probably my favorite one because I love to eat. Like, I love food. But go get something to eat or drink. Like, that feeling when you're in your zone and you're creating your thing and you're just going and you're just in the flow and you look up and it's like, oh my gosh, 6 hours have gone by and I've not eaten or drank anything. Like it's so easy to get into that flow state and, you forget everything else, including your basic needs and things that your body needs to thrive. I heard somebody say once that you got to be a special kind of stupid to forget to eat. And I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with being stupid. Like you are in flow state, all right? That is, you are in your zone and you are killing it and you're not thinking about anything else. But the human reality is our brains need fuel. We need fuel in order to keep going and keep creating the things we're creating. So you got to stop every now and then and eat and get something to drink, all right? Research has shown that the right nutrients actually increase energy levels and mental alertness and improve the brain power and ultimately help boost our creativity. So these are foods like whole grains. You might want to add foods like fish, seafood, fruits, fresh green vegetables. Like these are all like superfoods that help to boost what you got going on all up inside yourself so you can keep creating the magic that you're creating. Okay, my next tip for when you do encounter creative block is to refill your inspiration tank. I've talked about this on another episode, but I'll go a little bit more in depth here. I have this note in Evernote that's called Rocket Fuel. And anytime I find a video or a speech or an article or a tweet or a quote, or even a conversation that I've had with someone that like gives me that, that feeling like when you get super inspired and you're like, oh my God, if I jump hard enough, I could fly right now. Like that feeling, that rocket fuel, like I want to capture those moments. So I've got an Evernote folder full of those moments. And I revisit them anytime I'm feeling down or I get like creative block or inspiration block. Sometimes I'll go back to that rocket fuel folder and I'm like, boom, there it is. I feel inspired all over again. So you got to figure out what is going to fill your inspiration tank. For me, like I love watching people win. I just love it. And it doesn't matter what that looks like. It could be sports highlights, America's Got Talent clips when they, get the golden buzzer and, they get to go on to Las Vegas or whatever city they go to. I love documentaries. Like I just love deep emotional moments where people, especially if they're like really deserving of it and they worked really hard and they just needed a break. Like I love seeing people get to win. I remember one time my wife was making fun of me because like I cry easily, right? Like I'll cry at the drop of a hat. I don't care. Like I cry off of Disney movies. I like simple stuff. If there's an emotional element and I see somebody who was an underdog and, suddenly they get their big break or they win or they get, blessed or whatever, Like, it's going to move me, especially if the music is dope. Like, I am going to be crying freely, right? I'm not going to try to hold it in. Like, I am boo-hooing in the middle of the theater. I do not care. I'm in touch with my emotions, doggone it. I remember one time we were watching this restaurant Impossible or something with Robert Irvine. And, you know, he would go in and basically tear down these janky restaurants, you know, completely redo their operations, completely like redecorate and, you know, do the whole shebang. And at the end, the owners would get, you know, a new restaurant. And for whatever reason, I remember one time we were watching this episode and this couple had just been going through so much. Like, their restaurant was failing, but it's always more than just, you know, their restaurant is failing. It's like, oh, they've got something deep going on. Like, they had some heartbreak in the family or some deaths in the family, or, you know, they had tough financial troubles. And so they weren't able to pour into the restaurant. Like, so they had all this stuff going on. And at the end, when they, you know, opened up the doors and they revealed the new restaurant to this family, like, just the look of pure appreciation and joy on their face, and just them weeping and hugging and crying. Like, I broke down, man. I just started crying. I'm like on the couch chilling with my wife, and she's like, bro, really? Like, I need you to chill. Stop crying. I'm like, no, I can't help it. Like, I love this stuff. I love seeing people win. And so you really got to pay attention to what lights you up, what really gets you going, and remember those things. If you're like me, you might need to write it down, or, you know, put it in Evernote or in Notion or whatever you use, because you're going to need to go back to it when your creative mojo is low. All right, I got one more tip for you, but before I do, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors, and I'll be right back.
Set yourself free.
This podcast is brought to you by Lamar Haley Entertainment, helping global brands and creators leverage music, film and TV, and digital content to engage audiences on a human level. Discover more at lamarhaley.com.
Being a creator isn't easy. Whether you're juggling last-minute deadlines, working with difficult clients or team members, or you're just not feeling confident in the things you create, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and like no one understands what you're going through. Well, here at Team GodFrame, we got you. That's why we created the GodFrame mailing list, a weekly-ish newsletter full of stories, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive on your creative journey, so you can get back to making art that moves the world. Get that creative boost you've been waiting for, from GodFrame straight to your inbox. Sign up now at godframe.com/mailing-list.
Got a question you want to get answered on the show? Or you just want to give a shout out? Now you can. With the Anchor platform, you can record a personalized voice message for a chance to be featured on an upcoming episode of The GodFrame Show. Leave a message now at godframe.com/podcast.
Set yourself free.
All right, welcome back. We are talking about what to do when you face those creative blocks where all your ideas seem to go down the drain, you have no inspiration, and you feel like all your art and creativity is worthless. Like, what do you do? And so I have one more tip for you, and it's probably going to be one that you don't like very much, but you need it. All right? The tip is, the next time you face creative block, just stop. Stop everything and rest. All right? A lot of people will tell you, no, you just got to go harder. Like, just grind, keep going. Like, no, you just fight through it and you don't need no sleep. Like, no, bump that. I am not team no sleep. I am team, I'm going to get a nap if I need to. Might even get 2 of them. You feel me? Like, yo, we were not wired. We were not created to go nonstop. As much as you might want to create your thing 24/7, it is not realistic and it is not healthy. We need rest. So let me tell you, let me give you permission, all right? You can stop. You can rest. You have permission to take a break. I promise you, when you get back, the project will be waiting for you, all right? Earth is not going to explode. Your stuff, your tools are not going to catch on fire. Like, it will be waiting for you when you get back. And, I used to think that resting was a sign of, like laziness, especially like in that social media hustle culture, you know, team no sleep, hashtag like, oh, I sleep when I'm dead. Like, yeah, you might die because you're not sleeping. Like, you need to chill. But honestly, you know, resting is a sign of humility, and it shows that you trust in God and his power more than your own human efforts. And so when you do this, when you take time to rest, like, first you got to recognize it. Like, you're going to feel it. And you know what that feeling feels like when you're like at your wit's end and you're like, man, I just have nothing left in the tank. The moment you feel that, you should stop right away. Don't keep pressing through. Just pause. And at first, like completely shut down. Turn it all off. Get out of the office. Get out of your studio, wherever you are, and just go somewhere else. And you're going to feel antsy at first, especially if you're not used to doing this. It's going to make you feel crazy. I'm going to be honest. You're going to feel like you're not being productive. You're going to feel like you're behind. You're going to feel like this itch, almost like a drug, like you just have to get your creative fix. But if you stick with it, if you just hang tight, you will start to feel a sense of peace and rest and restoration, especially if you like go outside. Like, go do literally something else. Like, go outside, go for a walk, or get a massage, go to the pool, or go to sleep, take a nap. Or if it's 2 a.m, you've been working all night, go to bed, go to sleep. It's okay. I promise. I can't tell you how many all-nighters I've pulled, especially when I was like working a full-time job and trying to build my business at the same time on the side. Like, dude, I was exhausted. Like, I became accustomed to working on fumes. Like I would just expect, like, when I get up and go to work in the morning, I'm going to be so tired and I'm just going to have to push through it. Like, it just became my norm to where anytime I did get a full night of sleep, it felt weird. Like, I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what energy feels like? Like, I haven't felt this in so long. I don't even know what to do with this. To actually like not feel groggy and like I'm drunk all day, like, this is great. I can actually be productive. And, studies have even shown that even just being, 1 or 2 hours sleep deprived is the equivalent of being buzzed, or even to the extreme, being drunk, or being, heavy on medication or drug induced. Like, it is a dangerous thing, my friend, to grind and not get the rest you need. When you get rest, you have better decision-making abilities. Like, you have more energy to do what you need to do. You're more coherent. You're more trustworthy. Like, you're more safe. Like, I remember one time, I was working in Chicago and I was so tired. I don't remember, what we were doing, but we had a lot going on, and we used to, I don't know what it was. We used to work at both campuses. Like, our church had a campus in the west suburbs of Chicago and another campus on the south side of Chicago. And that's like a 45-minute to an hour drive between those two. And, on Sundays, we would go and, do services. I was youth pastor and media director. So we would go and like conduct services at both locations on a Sunday. And between that and like all the late night video editing I was doing and like pulling all these all-nighters, like, it caught up with me quick. And I'll never forget, one day I fell asleep twice on my way back home from a worship service. Middle of the day, it was like, 1, 2 o'clock p.m., not late. It was just middle of the day, but I was so tired. One of the instances, I was at a stoplight and I was like, all right, I'm gonna chill. Let me just like close my eyes for a second while I'm at the stoplight. And I thought I had blinked, but when I opened my eyes, like, people were honking and traffic was moving past me. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually fell asleep. So I was like, let me like perk myself up. And, maybe like 10, 15 minutes later, I was driving on the highway. And, if you've ever driven to Chicago, like, driving on the highway is the Wild West. It is absolutely crazy. Like, you have to go 80, 85 plus, or you'll get run over. Like, you just have to speed. And I was driving, and again, I thought I had blinked. But when I opened my eyes, I had traveled, I don't know how far, like a good distance down the road. Thankfully, I didn't hit anyone. By God's grace, didn't have a wreck, but I very well could have lost my life in that moment. And I hate to make it so morbid and so serious, but it really is that serious. Like, you choosing to or not to rest can actually mean life or death for you. This is beyond just getting past your creative block and getting your mojo back. It's about having a full life. And the last thing I'll say about that is, if you're a Christian, truly believing that you're made in the image of God, you can't forget that God actually rested. In one of the first stories we hear about him, he created everything in 6 days, and then on the seventh, he rested. Jesus rested often. He would retreat to a desolate place to go pray and relax, probably, because he had a lot going on. If we're modeling our lives like our Creator, then rest has to be a part of that life rhythm. All right, so those are my tips. I know today's episode was a little bit longer, but I still have a challenge for you. All right, my challenge is save this list and start to add to it so that the next time you feel creative block, try something from the list. All right, literally open it up and say, all right, I feel stuck right now. I feel like I have this block. What should I do? I should stop and go outside. Bet I'll go outside and just try it. Just see how it feels. I promise you, one of these things is gonna help you get back to creating the art that matters and getting closer to having a thriving creative life. All right, that's the show for today. Hopefully you found something in that was helpful. I appreciate you so much for listening. This is the GodFrame Show. I'm your host, GodFrame. I hope you have a phenomenal day and rest of your week and get through that creative block if you're going through it right now. All right, there is hope and life on the other side. And as always, I'll talk to you soon. Peace.